Hello and welcome back to my channel. So this week we are on to the Menai Straits Regatta, which is the week after the 200s, and it is a bit more of a different sailing challenge. It's a bit more on the location, kind of where you need to be sailing, but hopefully it should be a good week. So looking back at day one, the racing was to be held at Menai Bridge, which is kind of halfway along the strait. But sadly, because the boats hadn't been able to sail much the week before, they were all still at Carnarvon. So it was a bit of an early start, 9:30 to get to Carnarvon so that we could get all the boats towed through, ready for the start at 12:25. We start on having to do the tow. That meant that 3 of us had to go down to Carnarvon to get on the boat so we could get it towed through. So me, mum and dad got on the boat, and it was actually quite nice getting on the boat early because it meant that I had a bit of time just to get used to the boat because I haven't sailed it in a while. So just getting to know where everything was again was really helpful on the tow through. So once we dropped our tow at Menai, we managed to find a mooring, which was really good because then we weren't having to sail around the whole time. And it meant we could just sit there and wait till our start, which was really helpful. So once we got our 4th crew member, Graham, one of our grandfather's friends, once we got him on board, we got ourselves up and started heading to the start area, which is not very big, and for the amount of boats there, it is quite chaotic. So that's a bit of a challenge. So my job on the boat was to be on the bow with Graham, which, considering we were both quite new to it, or I haven't done it for a while, was a bit of a challenge at the start, but once we got into it, it was okay. The roles on the boat was that me and Graham were both on the bow, my mum was on the main, and then my dad was helming. So 3 of us from the same family in the boat, and then 1 friend. So when we were sailing around in the starting area, we had a bit of time just to get used to the boat, which was really helpful for me, just getting used to doing the jib and the runners, and just trying to understand where they needed to be, so that was quite useful. The weather for the day was around 5 to 15 knots, coming up the strait from the south, and not too much wind, but hopefully just enough to be able to sail, and that was good. with the start, we got a good start kind of out in the middle where the tide was, so pushing us out, and we got the kite up straight away, which, considering we both hadn't done it before, was quite quick. But as you can see from the video, I, being a bit silly, managed to put the head on the pole instead of the clew on the pole, and then put the clew on the halyard, which pulls it up. So it was completely the wrong way round, so we did have to take it down, which was a bit annoying, but that's what happens when you don't sail the boat and don't know which bits go where. With the jibe, my job was to set the pole and get that sorted. So with the pole, I have to take the guy, which is the rope that pulls the pole outwards, helps bring it around the front of the boat. I had to take that and the pole and flip it through in between the mast and the jib and help get that sorted, bringing the pole out a bit more just to get it filling straight away, getting the guy on, and then sorting out the kite sheet on the other side. From there, once I'd sorted the kite sheet, I then got back in the boat, and then I was back on trimming it, trying to make sure it was set for the right place. So with the drop, it was my job to sort out the pole and get the halyard down, and we did that quite well just because we had a bit more time than we expected, so it made it a bit easier to understand considering I was first time dropping. And then when we got to the mark, we got an okay mark rounding, but we were a bit stuck because we got pushed out the side by a limbo, which was also kind of sailing in the same start sequence as us, so we got a bit stuck with them, but we weren't doing too badly. But when we got around the mark, we were around third or fourth, so not the greatest position out of I think 6 of boats there were, but we still knew that we could catch them up. With the upwind, we decided to stick to the mainland shore, as that's where we thought that there'd be more breeze, and it also meant we could get out the tide, just staying a bit more on top of the sandbanks, which worked out nicely for us. And we managed to catch up the other boats coming up to the pier, so that was really good. And then once we decided that we needed to swap sides onto the Anglesey side, we did that just as we got to the pier, and luckily with the other boats going a bit slower, out of a bit less wind, we managed to get in front of them there, so that was really good. And then we're into first, which we're really happy with, but we knew we had to just keep trying to fight just to make sure we stayed ahead. Coming up to Menai, that's where we were starting to battle a bit more with the boat behind, just because being a different material boat, it was a bit lighter. So in the lighter conditions, it did usually go a bit faster, whereas we're faster in the heavier winds. So it was just trying to keep them at bay, keep them behind us, just trying to cover them when possible. But coming up to Menai and coming up towards the start-finish line, there were lots of other boats around, so it was quite difficult to try and keep a hold of them. And at one point we were a bit unlucky and got called starboard on by one boat, pushing us out into the tide, whereas the boat behind managed to sneak inside right next to the shore, and they managed to sneak up in front of us, which is a bit annoying, but that's how the racing goes. When there's lots of boats, there's not much you can do. So we chased them up the rest of the beat and got around the mark, but they had made quite a gap at that point, so it was just trying to catch them up, which we knew we could do, but trying to catch them up. So when we got to the top mark, we had a bit of a better hoist this time, just because I knew what I was doing. We knew where we needed to get it and sort it out, so that was a lot better. And then we just followed them down the run, managing to make a small gain on them at halfway down. With the drop, we managed to do that quite nicely as well, just because it was more time in the boat, knew how to do it now, making it a lot easier. And we did manage to make a bit of speed on them just around that mark rounding, so we were close to them once we got round. Second beat, we decided to try and use the same strategy, staying on the mainland for as long as possible and then crossing over to the Anglesey side once we needed to get over so we could get out the tide. But this time we decided to go a bit earlier and go a tiny bit further inshore, which sadly we went in too close and ended up getting grounded on the shore, which wasn't great. With a fixed keel, it's just all about trying to get the front of the bow round into the wind and get it past the wind so we can pull ourselves off with a jib and hopefully get going again. So that's where hanging off the shrouds, trying to lean the boat over also helps. But sadly we couldn't get the nose of the boat through the wind, so in the end we had to get towed off, which meant we did need to retire, which was a bit annoying because we were catching them up, but that's what happens when you try and risk it a bit too much. It doesn't always go your way. So looking back at the day, it was good to be back on the boat for once. I've not been on it for a couple of years. It was nice sailing a different boat for once from all the other ones I've been sailing recently. And it was nice to see that we did have some good points. We were really quite fast upwind at times when there was a bit of wind, and we also had some good speed downwind, but it was just one of those times where we pushed our luck a little too far, and sadly it didn't work out for us and we didn't manage to get the reward we were wanting. So next we're on to day 2, which is going to be sailed in Beaumaris, and that's looking like quite a good day. So, see you in the next video.